From the WNIN Tri-State Public Media Center in downtown Evansville, I'm David James, and this is 2 Main Street. In Lewis Carroll's Adventures of Alice in Wonderland, a young girl tumbles down a rabbit hole, encountering a host of exotic characters as she searches for a way out. Notable among them, a grinning Cheshire cat, often seen as the guiding spirit for Alice. Well, there's a new action-adventure tale by local author Rebecca Bailey called Burn This Book, The 10,000-Year Plan. And to this reader, her main character, a young girl, Nadine, reminds me of Alice, confused yet inquisitive and courageous. And yes, there's also a cat in her journey, mysterious Morty. Rebecca Bailey writes under the pen name, the Nom de Plume of T. Harriman, and her book, Burn This Book, was recently nominated for a Pulitzer Prize for Best Fiction. So, Rebecca Bailey, welcome to 2 Main Street. I really enjoyed your book.
Thank you so much. This is so exciting. This is so much fun.
Now, would you agree that, or would you think I'm off base with this Alice in Wonderland comparison?
You are eerily... You are eerily on base because when I was a little girl and I would kind of curl up in my family's library, I would just be swept away by Alice in Wonderland and the Chronicles of Narnia. Cliche, I know it's true, but so I love these books so much, in fact, that I adopted the Cheshire Cat as sort of a personal symbol, and I would sign letters with just the grin.
Really?
Yes. And so when, fast forward just a few years, and I'm an adult, and I was kind of forced to adopt a cat I wasn't really crazy about. I already had 4 kids and a full-time job, and I didn't want another cat to look after. And I'll never forget, I'm getting some rare me time as a mom, and I look up, and this cat is watching me, curled up, fluffy, tabby, just like the Cheshire Cat. And I realized, oh my Lord, I have my own Cheshire Cat. And I'm sorry, I told you're thinking, and of course now that cat is just my best, most beloved companion, but with his brother.
And I understand you are a crazy cat lady.
I am a crazy cat lady. My Maine Coon, who is the aforementioned tabby, he curls up at my shoulders when I write, and my little white fluffy Berman, Picasso, he warms my feet as I write. So yes, they are, they're wonderful. So yes, I'm definitely a crazy cat lady.
So you had to have a cat in your novel, and this cat's name is Morty. How'd you come up with Morty?
Well, a lot of times when you read books, you'll encounter symbolism, and you'll say, I wonder if something is that intentional or is that an accident? Well, with me, it's likely very much intentional. The Morty is the cat, the big fluffy tabby, is not only a personal symbol of me, but he's also, I like to put a tabby in all of my books to remind as sort of like a sign of my cat Peaky, the tabby, who's always with me, and so sometimes he's literally on my mind.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm a cat owner. I know that.
Yes, but Morty, if you look. Some of the languages I've studied are Latin and Greek, and mor, M-O-R-S in Latin means death, and and there's kind of a mystery throughout the book, and I suddenly realized I don't want to spoil it for all of you.
Well, Morty is a unique creature, and Morty kind of appears and then disappears. But that's part of the drama here that you create in your book.
Precisely.
Now,
yes.
I think it's ironic that at a time when censors are wanting to ban certain books during our time, the good guys in this adventure want to burn a certain book to save the world. That's an irony there.
That's right. And so the title of the book, Burn This Book, The 10,000 Year Plan, it refers to that, but it's also my implicit challenge. Go ahead, burn this book. And it's my implicit challenge, my way of rebelling against that spirit of censorship.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, before we talk about the human characters, now we're talking about Morty. Now, you were the founder of the Tri-State Cat Club. Is that correct?
Oh, yes. Yes,
we're on a cat theme here. Okay.
I love my cats so much. I know how weird this sounds. I love my cats so much that I thought, what can I do for my cats? How can I show them that I love them? And I thought, it's taking care of other, cats out that are, out shivering in the cold as we speak, or don't have enough to eat and or don't have a home. So, but yes, we meet. We're getting started here. Little plug here.
Okay.
If you're interested in joining the Tri-State Cat Club, we're going to meet at River City. River Kitty
Cat Cafe.
Yeah, that's right. And we're going to do the everything that the humane. We're going to try to support everything, the good work that the Humane Society does. And but if you're interested, email me, welcome@tharriman.com.
And
sorry.
And at the Cat Cafe, they could help you out too if you want more information on that.
That's right.
We just did a story at the Cat Cafe celebrating their 1,000th cat adoption.
Oh, that's amazing.
A little cat named Amanda was the 1,000th adoption, and that was a 2 Main Street episode. Okay, now let's talk about the human characters in the book.
God. Okay.
I guess the main protagonist, Nadine.
That's correct.
Nadine, feisty young lady.
She is feisty, but she doesn't really know how privileged she is. I think she's probably the average American, and so a lot of what she sees as she stumbles into the
rabbit hole, really.
Yes, literally a rabbit hole between dimensions, into oh my goodness, all the different universes and the infinite library. She really stands for each one of us as we take in this new and unfamiliar and exciting world.
Now, Nadine, is she a middle schooler in this book?
She is not. She's a high schooler.
Oh, she's a high schooler.
She's dying to get into the University of Chicago.
Oh, okay. Okay, so she's past middle school. She's in high school.
That's correct.
Very awkward teenage years.
Yep.
And she had the whole thing. The book starts with a tragic plane crash.
That's right.
And I mean, I go, what? We start out with this, and she's the sole survivor. So, I mean, and then it goes from there.
That's right. And all of this is symbolic. Every page of the book is symbolic and allegorical. I set up, the title of the book, of course, is Burn This Book, The 10,000 Year Plan. And throughout the book, I set up the reasons we don't have an overarching plan for survival, which we really need if we are going to overcome all the massive obstacles humanity is facing. And it is my hope that someday, that in classes, in classes, in Boy Scout and Girl Scout troops, you can look at the dialogue and say, okay, this character says this, how is that an obstacle to our survival, and what can we do to overcome it?
Now, Nadine has a partner in this adventure named Worth.
That's correct.
Worth is very interesting, too, because Worth kind of not only goes between the different dimensions, but also the different genders.
That's correct. That's right. And these two have a very long history, we should say. And the book really has a very long history because I started it in 2013, and I started it because of a National Public Radio show.
Really?
That's correct.
Okay. Well, what was the show?
It was Science Friday.
Okay.
On
Which we air
yes
on Friday, of course.
Oh, do you? Okay.
Oh, yeah, we air it every Friday.
All right.
Sci-Fi.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So here's what happened. I'm a mom of 4, and teenagers, tweens, they eat like crazy, and so I'm on my way to our Meijer in Merrillville, Indiana, which is where I lived at the time. And I was listening to Science Friday, and they were talking to a University of Chicago astronomer, and they were talking about interstellar travel. And they asked this astronomer, well, why hasn't anybody ever gone, why don't we ever plan to go from one end of the galaxy to the other? Long story short. And the astronomer says with a laugh, that's because human beings are really bad at making 10,000-year plans. And 10,000 years is how long it would take. And mentally, I'd only been listening with half an ear because I was planning, I was thinking about okay, potato chips, pretzels.
All right.
Yeah. But all of a sudden, I nearly crashed the car. I'm thinking, we do need a 10,000-year plan. Humanity is beset by so many problems. And regardless of political opinion, creed, we can all agree that humanity is beset by problems on a grand scale. And we can all do something to make the world a better place toward this. It would be amazing. And I place implicit challenges to scientists who work on a large scale. I place implicit challenges in the book for them to make these 10,000-year plans. But I think otherwise, all of us, every single one of you who's watching and listening to us, we can all do something to help us survive on the long term. And so the overarching, yes, of course, I built the book first to entertain. To me as a writer, that's always job one. But the underlying reason for the book is to unite a whole generation of young readers, if not the whole world, and get them to work toward toward making the world a better place, which is, I believe, why I was nominated.
Mm-hmm. Now, the story involves time travel, of course. So are you a big sci-fi fan?
Yes, I'm a huge sci-fi fan. In fact, the Chicago Tribune called my book a thrilling must-read for anyone who loves Harry Potter and the Hunger Games. So I was really pleased when I read that because I thought, okay, I'm hitting my marks. Mm-hmm. So I was glad to hear that.
Let's talk about the cover here.
Okay.
We've got looks like the White House is in the background and it's on fire.
Yes. And
why is it on fire?
Oh my goodness, I got a lot of criticism from my sister saying, because I started the book in 2013 and I didn't have a lot of input with the illustrator, but I said, well, maybe you can just use the White House as a symbol of, just an institution that is, that is in danger of destruction.
Which was prophetic.
Yes.
Because, well, the Capitol was certainly in danger for a while. Yes.
Well, I didn't realize that at the time. I really was just using it. The book is completely apolitical. It does not favor any creed, and it does not even have a curse word in it. I wanted to challenge myself to do that. Nobody curses in the book.
That's true. They don't.
They don't.
I read the book. There's no curse words in the book.
There's no curse words in the book.
There's some implications that people were angry.
Yes, exchange heated conversations.
Yes, that was very clear. Now, did you have an input on? There was a picture of Morty on the cover.
Yes.
And Morty looks fluffy. Yeah, very fluffy. Did you have an input on that?
I did.
Really?
I did, because I did not have a whole bunch of input. And I'm kind of glad, though, honestly, because the illustrator really thought of stuff I did not think of.
Okay.
The illustrator, the characters are practically leaping off the page. Mm-hmm. And, they're practically coming out of the frame of the book. And so that's something that she thought of that I would never have thought of. But when I did have input, I would say, make the cat cuter. And I had so many people roll their eyes at me, just like, why make the cat cuter? I'm like, trust me, kids love cats. And sure enough, whenever I'm out there doing a signing or a reading, I'll ask kids, just kind of like, just curious, mm-hmm. what do you see first? They're like, I see the cat. I love the cat. The cat's so cute. That's why I was like, make the cat bigger, fluffier, cute. And sure enough, that's the first thing that kids see.
Now, what is the target audience of this book, Rebecca Bailey?
Well, it has a Flesch Kincaid grade level of grade 4. And that was for marketing purposes. But technically speaking, anybody with a grade 4 reading level can read the book. And because we have an ample amount of studies that show that lower grade levels tend to sell more books. Most Harry Potter books test out at an 8th grade level. I think probably the most, forgive me, stop me if you think you've heard this one before, oh goodness, The Old Man of the Sea, I'm sorry to blank out here.
You mean Hemingway?
Hemingway! Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I forget the name of my exemplar. But Hemingway famously wrote at a 4th grade level.
Really?
Yes, consistently. Now, were his works unsophisticated? Obviously, there's no way. But we have all these studies that show that. Mm-hmm. So it tests out a 4th grade reading level. A lot of my writers tend to be teens and people into their 20s and 30s, but I've had people in their 80s say they love the book as well. So mm-hmm. it has a wide audience, and that was kind of what I hoped for. I hoped there'd be something for everybody.
Hemingway loved cats as well.
Yes, I have been there. I have been at his house in Key West and seen the six-toed cats.
That's right, the Descendants.
Yes.
Definitely. My guest is Rebecca Bailey. She's author of Burn This Book, The 10,000-Year Plan, nominated for a Pulitzer Prize for fiction. And you have other books, Rebecca Bailey?
I do. I'm really excited. In a month or so, I have a book that is coming out. It's called All Hail Queen of the Freaks.
Okay.
And
that's a good title.
Yeah, thanks. And so I'm really looking forward to that coming out. Mr. James and I were talking about before we went on air that I grew up. Uh, my family is from the west side of Evansville, one of those German families that dropped anchor in the 1830s and 1840s, and I live in Newburgh now. But my mom and my sister and my parents are still. Sorry, my parents and my sister are still on the west side. I've spent my whole life writing and editing, and I started off writing romance books.
Really?
Yes, but I switched to writing young adult books because it's something that my children
Sure.
could read.
Okay. Now let's learn more about my guest, native of the Evansville area, Castle High grad.
That's right.
Did your interest in journalism start at Castle High School, Rebecca?
Well, actually, no.
Okay.
My career started in 1972.
Okay.
I was 4 years old. And
wow. Okay.
yes, and I still remember where I was, the seat. I was sitting in my mother's seat at the kitchen table. I was on her lap, and she was reading to me The Little Engine That Could. Whew, little did I know how prophetic that would be. And I remember, and okay, go ahead, laugh at me. We were reading The Little Engine That Could, and I was just transported into this world. And I thought as a kid, that's what I want to do. I want to write books just like that. And sure enough, that experience repeated itself. TikTok users, there's a shifting community where they try to go to another universe or reality. I don't know if that's true or not, but when I would read, it was like I was truly in another world. And so, and I wanted to just keep repeating that experience. And over time, I think I was a good writer when I was a kid and as a teenager, but I wasn't a fantastic writer. But I made up my mind I would be an excellent writer, and if you don't mind my saying so. And so I determined to do whatever it took to learn about how to be the best writer possible. Mm-hmm. Even from like when I was, in the single digits.
So where did you go to college?
I went to Indiana University, Bloomington.
Mm-hmm.
There, I graduated in 4 years, so you don't think I was a lifetime student. I graduated in 4 years with 4 majors on 2 bachelor's degrees. Yeah, and apparently they don't allow that anymore, so I think I'm one of the few in the world. But the 4 majors were English, classical studies in Greek and Latin, journalism, and linguistics.
Now, that's an interesting combination. I like that.
Thank you.
Lot.
It is quite interesting, and then I've got a master's degree in linguistics.
Mm-hmm. Well, I studied humanities. My master's degree is in humanities, and
that's interesting.
I just loved
that's fantastic.
Literature and history and psychology, and it just I'm just fascinated by all that.
It had to be useful.
It is. It definitely is. Now, were there any other writers in your family?
My father, Earl Fetcher, he ended his career as a superintendent in southern Indiana, but many of your readers may know him as the longtime principal at Chandler Elementary School, which is where I went to elementary school. His name is Earl Fetcher, and yes, German last name, I know. My father would write beautiful essays and letters and things like that. But just the kind that we were talking about, Joe Aaron, the late Evansville courier, my father would write things that would just bring tears to your eyes, just like Joe Aaron would. But he never really developed that. Mm-hmm. So, but my father, he's getting up in age now, and some of his memory has passed. And yet, if you ask him anything about any of his thousands of students, he remembers literally everything about them. So it was more of his mission, lifetime mission. It still is to be an educator.
Now, you mentioned you have four children.
I do.
Now, what did you read to your children?
Oh, my goodness. That's a good question. I would read to them anything that I could get my hands on. And my children each leave symbols throughout this book. Every so often, I would ask my scientific consultant, Co Sanders, and I would ask my children. I would say as a challenge, tell me something to add to the book, and I will add it in and make it look normal. And you will always know that is your symbol. And that you'll always know that X or Y represents you. And so my oldest son, Jacob Bailey, who is an RA at Indiana University, he would never want to take part in this. And so my kids would always, so my other three kids made up my kids just said, well, he'll just be a bag of shredded cheese.
Oh, gosh.
I know. It's just weird. And so at one point, you'll find a bag of shredded cheese, and that represents my son, Jacob Andrew Bailey.
So what do they think of the book?
Oh, my goodness. I think they have lived with it for so long. I think it's just something they live with.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's just like another family member.
Are Nadine and Worth symbols of any of your children?
They are not.
Okay.
No. Nadine, they're both composites of characteristics.
Are you a part of Nadine?
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I definitely feel like part of Nadine. But they more feel like my children. And so, which is why the ending was difficult for me, but I just did not see, and I tried to get out of it, but I just could not, the world was too fully shaped by then, and I couldn't get any other way, get out of it any other way. Mm-hmm. No, they're more children for me, but they're also composites of characteristics. Nadine is a dove, Worth is a hawk,
yes,
and things like that.
Mm.
So, which enables me again to explore this theme of what we need to do to build to survive as for humanity to survive.
Now, this is an adventure.
Yes.
I mean, it's a page turner.
Oh, thank you.
It really is.
Thank you.
A lot of action in it, and of course that's what's very important to young readers.
Yes.
And we have some reviews, and this one from the Chicago Tribune. I think you mentioned this is a thrilling must-read for anybody who loves Harry Potter or the Hunger Games, and that's a great review right there.
Yeah.
And you have a local review from an English teacher at Harrison High School, Julie Trice.
Yes.
And she says, this engaging novel is packed full of action from beginning to end. The characters are delightful, modern, appealing to a wide range of viewers, including reluctant ones. So get those people that maybe don't like to read it.
Yeah. I wrote the action as fast as I could. Mm-hmm. I love the Indiana Jones movies and novels, and that was definitely always in the back of my head. That kind of suspense, that kind of adventure, always keep it moving. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, that's very gracious of both of those writers to say.
And even a 12-year-old from Rome, Italy, Lorenzo, says, I'm usually a gamer, but I like the fast action of this. It was fun.
Yes.
Fun. Can't beat that.
Well, I'll tell you what, I believe that there's no such thing as writer's block. I think it's a cover term for a lot of different other issues.
Really? I want to explore that.
Yeah. Well,
there's no writer's block.
I don't believe there's such a thing. I think it's a cover term for a lot of other different issues. But I think that one of the things to get for well, but one of the ways to get out of writer's block is to think about what the reader needs. Why is your reader picking up your book? What do they psychologically need? And the target audience for this book probably just wants to have fun. And so whenever I would even get close to being stuck, I would just have fun writing, and I would just try to think of just having fun. But I don't think writer's block exists. I think a lot of it is a lack of, I'm not even going to say discipline. I'm going to say a lot of it is just a fear of not writing golden words.
Okay.
And as a writer, I think if you have enough practice, those words just appear by themselves. I think a lot of writer's block is not having the not having the training or the practice of sitting down and writing every day. I always tell aspiring writers, sit down, write, even if it's 5 minutes a day. You, Mr. James, we were
you can call me David.
David, sorry. We were talking earlier about, he talked about how he cut his journalistic teeth by writing obituaries. Mm-hmm. And so we were talking, and so then that when you work for a newspaper, as I started off working for the Evansville Press and the Evansville Courier, then that when you have a deadline, I mean, you don't sit there and say, oh my goodness, I just don't have any inspiration. No, you've got an editor over there saying, I need this in 10 minutes. And by God, if the roof over your head and the food on your children's plate is dependent on your writing something, you will write something. It may be good, it may be bad, but you will have something. And over time, that something gets better and better and better and better.
Mm-hmm. Now, we were talking earlier about a lot of the historical references that you drop in the book.
Yes.
And I think that's probably obviously purposeful. It's an educational adventure as well.
Well,
because
yeah.
they hear these terms about invasion of Normandy and Queen Isabella, and they go, okay, there's a story there behind these historical people too.
Oh, yes.
And so hopefully that will get them to investigate these characters as well. And we were just talking before we did the interview about Queen Isabella, who is kind of the Cruella de Vil in this. She's the kind of the evil one, and this was really a reincarnation of Queen Isabella from Spain, Castile.
Yes, Castile. Yes.
She's still around.
That's right.
and causing mayhem.
That's right.
And she wants to control the world.
She does. It turns out that just like the 80s song, Everybody Wants to Rule the World, it turns out that there are several competing plans that people, just as conspiracists suggests, it turns out that there are several competing plans to take over the world.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And we were talking about this kind of the reference to Alice in Wonderland, that Queen Isabella is kind of like the Queen of Hearts in that novel as well.
Yes, which I did not realize until he said that. One thing I have really found, especially with writing this book, the author Umberto Eco said that writing a book is a cosmic experience, and that is so true because you said that not knowing how much Lewis Carroll and the Cheshire Cat were part of my inspiration. So,
of course, Queen Isabella from Castile, she empowered the Inquisition, so she had some little evilness there.
That's
but
right.
Then again, though, she financed Columbus exploration.
She did.
So, kind of a Renaissance woman of her time.
She was, yes,
and,
for better or for worse.
And she shook up medieval Europe. So Queen Isabella, quite the character. Let's see. We have also a review from Oscar nominee Sean Astin from Stranger Things and Lord of the Rings. That was nice.
Yes.
He says your book asks readers, "Are you going to work together for the greater good?"
Yes, that was very kind of him too. He recorded that, and I have that on my YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, his wife is actually from LaPorte, Indiana, up in
The region.
the region.
That's
yes.
right. Okay. Could you see this as a movie?
I definitely wrote it
It
with
sounds
that
like a
in mind.
screenplay.
Oh,
When I
well.
was reading it.
Oh, thank you so much.
Oh, I said, this is a screenplay.
Oh, thank you so much. I did indeed write it with that in mind. How would it play on the big screen? And so you notice that the lines of dialogue, they're very short. They're almost sound bites.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, really, they are sound bites.
Oh,
They really are.
Well,
and,
thank you.
And they kind of move on to the next scene. And I can see it blocked out, too.
oh, thank you so much.
Because you have these different universes, and you can just see the scenery behind it, and the imagery of this infinite library really fascinated me.
Oh, thank
Kind of paint
you.
the picture of this library for us.
Well,
Okay, so they're searching for a book to burn it.
well, they are indeed.
Mm-hmm.
And the only place they can find this book is the Infinite Library, which obviously is a reference to, the records, the things like that. And, so the Infinite Library, I took my inspiration for that from one of Umberto Eco's novels. And you flattered me earlier when you said it seemed like a very modern plot. And that was what I was hoping for. The book is full of a lot of paradoxes. And when Nadine falls into Dis, which is the crack between the universes.
That's the rabbit hole.
Yes, that is the literal rabbit hole. I copied the structure of the Epic of Gilgamesh when as Nadine progresses through through Dis. And of course, the Epic of Gilgamesh is the oldest complete epic that we have on record. So I really wanted the book to be about paradoxes.
Well, I see a paradox right now.
Okay.
Because you're talking about classical literature.
Yes.
And then you're talking about science fiction. So you're blending the
Right.
two
Precisely.
together. And I think that's a nice technique.
Thank you. It was very. I would like to say it was difficult to write the book, but it was not. After you have been editing and writing for nearly 50 years, I would write, and my mind would just go away to each world that I was trying to describe, and then I would come back once my time was up for the day.
My guest is Rebecca Bailey. She's author of Burn This Book, The 10,000-Year Plan. And is the book available on Amazon?
It is Amazon, Barnes and Noble, and booksellers all around. Shout out to your brother's bookstore oh goodness, Blue Stocking Social, and which have just been amazingly supportive.
Mm-hmm.
We're so blessed to have them in our community.
Now, tell me about the notification of being a Pulitzer Prize nominee for fiction. How did you learn about that?
I got an email.
Really?
Yeah, I had to make a phone call.
From the Pulitzer people?
Columbia. It's
Oh.
Columbia. Yeah, so it's
Columbia
like,
University?
Yeah, so it's like, oh gosh, I have the email, but yeah, it was from columbia.edu, and yeah, it was nuts.
Did you know you were in the running?
I had heard talk about it,
Mm-hmm.
because the nominee had, I'm sorry, the nominator had told me it's a very large organization that nominated me, and they had kind of told me they would like to do that, but so I kind of knew it was coming, but there's no moment like, you're opening up your email and, let's say, oh,
It didn't go to junk. That's good.
No, it didn't go to junk.
That's great.
Yeah, it's like, oh, okay, email from PetSmart, email from mom, email from dad. What? Your Pulitzer nomination. And I'm like, what? So yeah,
I bet
it was a moment.
I bet your publisher enjoyed that.
Yes. And so things started taking off. Then things really started taking off for me then, and then the Chicago Tribune article just really got a lot of attention.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what's been the impact from that? How did that turn things around?
Well, it has been calls, letters. It's really. It's been exciting. It's amazing it's what you plan for and you work towards your whole life. I've been through some very, very, very hard times personally. Mm-hmm. And all through that, I kept my dream of writing alive, and I kept writing even when, people made fun of me for doing that. And or said, you can't make money doing that, or nothing's going to come of it. And to have people wanting your autograph, and it's still in the surreal phase. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's still in the surreal phase.
Well, a writer has to deal with rejection, right?
Yes, and I have had thousands of. I couldn't even count. Couldn't even count the number of rejections. A friend of mine, Mark Merriman, who writes the Haunted Indiana series, he says that, he knows a guy who papered his entire bedroom in rejections. Yeah.
So what is your writing routine? Do you set aside a certain time every day to write, Rebecca?
Well, I hate to say this because a lot of people probably have an idea that, I write candles, and writing for me is some mystical experience. Mm-hmm. And the going somewhere else when I write, okay, maybe that could qualify as mystical, because when I write, I'm there. It's a 3D. I'm in the middle of everything. But other than that, I hate to say it, it's not real exciting. Mm-hmm. I make myself write every single day. 365 days a year. And, sick, well, I'm going to write, at least a few minutes every day. So what I do is that hopefully I've got a cup of coffee. Usually my cats, I've got one here, one warming my feet, and I write. And I just sit down and I write. Mm-hmm. And there's really nothing terribly, it's just that hell or high water, I'm going to write today and every day. Yeah.
Now, what do you think about there's plans to censor books in schools, like To Kill a Mockingbird?
I know.
And, we had, let's see, Adventures of Tom Sawyer, the classics, Grapes of Wrath. People don't want those in schools. I don't understand that. Do you?
Well, and now it seems to have flared up a bit, and I don't think this is an example. I don't think this is an accident. My apologies, mm-hmm. Because people are afraid. And, people, when people are confident in themselves, in their ways of life, they do not seek to get in anyone else's way. But when people are afraid, when they're afraid that their culture is in danger, their way of life is in danger, that's when they do things like censor books. God is very important in my life, and I believe that there's no reason to be afraid because God is in control. So I don't really understand why people would want to ban books.
There's life is filled with ironies, of course, and that's what writers love that. I know that.
Yes, indeed.
The irony is when you ban a book like Mouse, the sales skyrocket.
Yes.
So it backfires on the people
Right.
that want these out of circulation, and then they have to print more of them.
Right.
I think that's a classic.
Yep, that's true. That is true.
Revenge is a dish best served cold. Definitely. So anyway, your advice to aspiring authors, do people come to you and say, hey, I have an idea. What do I do? How do I get going?
All the time. Oh my goodness, all the time. Now it's to where I'm getting an email a day, with somebody. And I actually have YouTube videos that explain how to start writing a novel or a blog or whatever you want to write. So you can check those out on my YouTube channel. Just search for T. Harriman. And so I've done that to kind of hopefully forestall a lot. But really, if anybody wants to get started writing out there, my best advice is just to write every day. I don't care if it's 5 minutes. And most of us, even a single mom of 4 like me, we can find at least 5 minutes. So, that's really the number one step.
Why the pseudonym T. Harriman?
Well, that's a great question.
Well, thank you. That's my job.
Yeah, ask great questions. Yeah, that's actually not a small job. That's hard to ask great questions. So, when it came time for me to select a pseudonym, I thought about, okay, well, what do I want for my first name? And I thought, well, I think J.K. Rowling probably was on to something when she said that, if you use an initial, nobody knows whether you're male or female. And so I chose T for that reason. And Harriman, the book industry is notoriously snooty. I'm going to just come right out and say it. And so I needed an aristocratic sounding name.
Okay.
So what did I do? I got on the Google and I looked for the name, Kennedy names. And one of them is Harriman.
Averill Harriman?
Yes.
Yes, one of his famous aides and advisors.
Yes.
Averill Harriman. Wow.
So that's where I got the.
That's an interesting backstory too.
Oh goodness, I'm just all.
Wow.
I'm boy, I got a lot of backstory. That's for sure.
Now I'm curious too. Nadine, Worth, and Morty. Will their adventures continue? Maybe in a sequel?
They do indeed.
Really?
Yes,
Good.
They do indeed continue in a sequel. I'm actually mostly done with it, and this one was it's really funny. But I'm gonna get All Hail Queen of the Freaks out first, and then I'll get the sequel to this one out of the way. See, I wasn't when COVID came out. When COVID happened, I was like, this book was done. I mean, it had been done for a long time. But I was like, yeah, but I can't do appearances and things like that.
Sure.
So I was like, okay, well, we'll just come out with this after COVID, and while COVID was going on, I started working on these other books. So I have 3, in the can, as actors would say. I have 3 in the can past this.
Well,
So,
you've got me intrigued on the freak, the Queen of the Freaks. Can you
yes.
give me just a little bit of snippet of what that's about?
Yes, it's about a young woman who thinks she's dead.
Okay.
and she's not, and everyone tells her that. And so she thinks that she calls herself the Queen of the Freaks. And it talks about her adventures as she goes about living and learns how to live. So it's a lot of, I just really just had a lot of fun with it.
Okay. Valparaiso University.
Yes.
You taught there?
I did, 12 years.
What did you teach at Valpo?
Well, I taught in the communications department, so interpersonal communication, nonverbal communication, organizational, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How'd you get that gig?
Oh, goodness. Oh, well, my husband was a pastor in LaPorte, which was nearby.
Mm-hmm.
And so I just, nothing exciting. I just applied to the department.
Mm-hmm.
And Douglas Coker, who is, he's retired now, but man, he's one of the best bosses in the world, hired me.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Of course, now the Crusaders, the Valpo Crusaders, for many years are now the Beacons.
Yes.
What's your reaction to that?
I was surprised.
I think everyone was surprised with that.
I didn't think that, because they stayed the Crusaders for so long that they stayed the Crusaders for so long. I was like, I didn't think they'd ever change, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm. So did you come across any aspiring writers at Valpo?
Quite a few I did. But I actually conducted some seminars and workshops on writing there as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So did you have something called the Second Kingdom? What's that all about?
Oh, okay. That's very interesting. Yeah, as I said earlier, I have all kinds of backstories. So if you check out my social media, you will see that I use the hashtag, or I use the handle Second Kingdom quite a bit. And this is a reference to Dante and the opening lines of his Purgatorio.
Okay.
So
this is your classical training.
Yes. And I speak of the Second Kingdom, and that's kind of like a personal thing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's why that's why you see the Second Kingdom.
Okay. Who are you reading now?
Who am I reading now? Oh my goodness. I hate to say this, but I read a lot of choose your own adventure books.
What's that?
Choose your own adventure. Excuse me. Choose your own adventure books are they're books where you can that you start off along a plot, and then you are faced with 2 decisions or 3 or 4 decisions, and you choose a potential ending, and you go along and see what happens. And I love those books, but they're also very useful for me because now that I'm getting busier and busier and busier, even if I only have like just a few minutes to read, I can get a little further on a plot.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, definitely choose your own adventure books. The writing is just amazingly fast. Nobody can get a character to Europe faster than those writers. And so I definitely thought of that when I was writing my...
Now, at the conclusion of your book, Burn This Book, the 10,000-Year Plan, there's a challenge to young readers at the end of the book. Can you explain that?
Yes. Boy, it sounds terribly, terribly, terribly pretentious of me to say this, but part of what I'd like to do as an author is redefine the author's job and to redefine what a book is. I think that the publishing industry is just getting thrashed by its competitors, and I think we need to change things up and make things more exciting and visceral for a reader, to compete with those threats. So, yeah.
Well, that's an interesting take on that. And there's looks like a little quiz, or I guess, at the back too.
Yes,
isn't it?
there's quizzes.
You question your readers.
Yes, I'm always trying to engage my readers. And so one of the things I give out as an author is I give out these little, I don't know to what extent the camera can get these, but for example, and so I have these bracelets, and you can see even like the little cat on it. And which is kind of I use that recurring symbol throughout my book, but the book culminates with the motto of the plan.
And the motto is?
Yep, it is.
I have it here.
Yes, very good. Thank you.
I try to help out.
It's do good, do the impossible, see what no one else can see, and be brave. And so on this, and so in your lives, dear listeners, dear viewers, dear readers, you will find times in your life where you need to be, do good, do the impossible, see what no one else can see, and be brave. And so the first line is on this bracelet, and the second line, will be on the second round of bracelets I come up with.
Is this part of your religious background?
To do good.
I mean, to get this message across.
Yes, absolutely. Because when you'll notice that the first line of the plan's motto is just to do good. So, and the reason for this is that when we think about a 10,000-year plan, we think, oh my gosh, something so monumental. And if you really try to think about it, it's very difficult to conceptualize, very difficult to wrap your mind around. And so with the first line of the motto, I really just want to boil it down to something that is very, very simple. And the first thing is to do good. Do something good. If everyone mindfully does something good, we'll make it as a species. We will. But long story short, sorry.
Well, Nadine finally comes to the realization that she's going to do good, no matter what the odds are.
Right.
She is on a mission to do good, and and the adventure begins.
That's right.
Rebecca Bailey, this has been a lot of fun.
Oh, thank you for having me. This has been a blast.
Her pen name is T. Harriman. The book is Burn This Book: The 10,000-Year Plan, a Pulitzer Prize nominee for fiction. Thanks, Rebecca.
Thank you.
Continue success with your writing career.
Much appreciated.
I'm David James, and this is 2 Main Street, presented by Jeffrey Berger, Kim Wren, and the Berger Wealth Services team at Bayard Private Wealth Management.